What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. So you see the title and the thumbnail in today's video. Yeah, we're going to go over every single baseball superstar that is currently on a baseball team. And to be honest, there are a lot of great players who are on bad teams right now. And that's terrible for the sport. I mean, this is like devastating for baseball. And how do you get more people to watch the sport's best players? Well, put them on prime time during the season and hope and pray that they're in the playoffs on a consistent basis. Now, of course, there are a lot of teams that have a lot of good players. And, of course, only 10 teams make the playoffs. But it just seems like this year's stars and the teams that they're on are not, as of right now, on a path to make the postseason here in 2021. And again, baseball is best in October. I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, you love to watch October baseball. It means so much more, obviously. Even if you're a fan of a team who's in the playoff picture or not, if you're just a baseball fan like me, because again, my favorite team is the Tigers. They ain't making the playoffs this year. It don't matter how you slice and dice it. They're not making it, but I'm still going to watch the playoffs. Why? Because I'm a baseball fan. And as a general baseball fan, without having any bias towards a team being in the playoffs, I want to see the most entertaining players on the biggest stage. And unfortunately, right now, if the playoffs were to end today, a majority of baseball superstars would not have a chance to play in October. And that's really bad. So I'm going to go over some of the guys who are not going to make the postseason, tell you what teams they're on. You probably have a general idea of who I'm going to be talking about, and kind of go over why this is a nightmare for baseball. Okay, so let's start off with the obvious two players. And that is, in my opinion, the best two players in the sport. Those guys being Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. Now, I know Mike Trout is hurt. I understand that. It don't look like he's coming back. If he does come back, it ain't going to matter. Why? Because the Angels suck. The Angels suck so bad that they're 68 and 69 right now as I'm filming this video, and they're in 4th place in the AL West. And of course, the last time and the only time Mike Trout was in the playoffs was back in 2014 when his Angels lost in the divisional series to the Royals. That's not good, and Mike Trout ain't going back to the postseason this year. So you got Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani. The top two players in all of baseball, Ohtani being one of the most entertaining athletes in sports, is not going to be able to show off his greatness on baseball's biggest stage. And again, the Angels don't need to make it to the World Series. They don't need to win a World Series when it comes to upping the entertainment factor for baseball. Of course, that'd be awesome. I'd love to see Ohtani and Trout, in a World Series together. That'd be insane. But again, baby steps here. You need them to make the playoffs. And the thing is, they haven't made any baby steps. Trout hasn't been in the playoffs since 14, like I told you. And Ohtani hasn't even played baseball in the month of October. So the next two guys are Fernando Tatis Jr. and Mark Malanson. The Padres are currently 73 and 64 and are in 3rd place in the NL West and are fighting for a National League wildcard spot. They're kind of fighting with the Reds right now, so we'll see what happens. But as of right now, they ain't making the playoffs. And if Tatis ain't in the playoffs again, and one of the best closers in baseball ain't in the playoffs again, and that's going to suck. I mean, it is going to suck because, again, Mark Malanson, much respect to the guy. But Tatis Jr. is the star of the show here. You want Tatis in the playoffs. You saw what happened last year. It was awesome. And again, last year, they made the playoffs for the first time since, 2006. They faced the rival Dodgers during the playoffs. They lost to the Dodgers. And the other negative thing about last year was that there was no fans. And I feel like people weren't really into baseball last year, or really sports in general last year as much as they are this year. And it's going to suck if Fernando Tatis Jr. and Mark Malanson aren't in the playoffs. So I just named you 3 guys who could all arguably be the faces of the sport. Trout, Ohtani, and Tatis. That is not good. And we're just getting started. Next, I'm going to name you 3 superstars, all of which were arguably the face of baseball at some point in the past couple of years. And those guys are Javier Baez, Francisco Lindor, and Jacob Degrom. Now, these guys have all been in a World Series before. Baez in 16, Lindor in 16, and Degrom in 15. Lindor and Degrom did not win a championship. Baez did, thank God. But again, Baez, Lindor, Degrom, three superstars all on the same team, a team that was basically on top for most of the season, have now fallen to third place in the NL East. They are 69 and 68 right now. That is not good. Third place. They ain't looking at a wild card spot. They ain't even near the wild card. They're not even near the division. They're in third place. Going into the month of August, we all thought the Mets were a lock for a playoff position. But sadly, things have changed. And when it comes to a baseball perspective, entertainment perspective, you're not going to have three of the biggest names in the sport on the sport's biggest stage. That sucks. So as of right now, I just named off 7 guys who are not going to be in the playoffs this season if the season ended today. This is terrible. Next, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Robbie Ray. They play for the Blue Jays. Guerrero is a home run leader. He's MVP candidate, just like Shohei Ohtani is. And Robbie Ray could arguably win the Cy Young. The Blue Jays are in 4th place in the AL East at 73 and 62. If the season ended today, Guerrero and Robbie Ray are not in the playoffs. That's just not a city. That's a whole country watching the sport of baseball, perhaps. I mean, that's a big market if you're baseball. And that's going to suck for viewership and popularity and potential growth for the sport of baseball. It's going to kill it. And this is not good. I'm not kidding, guys. If you're a baseball fan out there, you should be worried because I'm looking at this and I'm worried. I want the sport of baseball to be the #1 sport on the face of the earth. And unfortunately, this year's circumstances when it comes to superstars and the teams they're on do not equal success when it comes to marketing, economics, and viewership for the sport as a whole. Another guy, Salvador Perez, turned out to be one of the top home run hitters in baseball. I do believe he's tied with Shohei Ohtani, or right behind Shohei Ohtani, when it comes to the most home runs in baseball this season. Salvador Perez, he's on the Royals. Royals suck. They're 61 and 75. They're in 4th place in the Central Division. They're not making a wild card. Yes, they won a championship in 15, but this year it all that matters. Salvador Perez, one of the best players in baseball. Top power hitters, not making the playoffs. That's not good. Bryce Harper, remember him? The Phillies, $330 million man. Philadelphia is a baseball town. They love their baseball. As of right now, the Phillies are 70 and 66. But again, they're not in a wild card position, or they really are in a wild card position, but they're not close to a wild card position. So really, their only hope is a division championship. And again, if the playoffs ended today, they are not making the postseason via a divisional championship nor a wild card spot. That's not good. Bryce Harper, one of the best players in baseball, one of the most popular players in baseball. Whether you hate him or you love him, he's one of the faces of baseball. He was on MLB The Show 19. I mean, he was a big deal and still is a big deal in the sport of baseball. And the last guy I'm going to mention is Trevor Story, the shortstop. He plays for the Rockies. Rockies are 63 and 74. They are 4th place in the NL West. They ain't making the playoffs. This is terrible. This is baseball's worst nightmare. I'm telling you guys, I feel like a lot of people who watch baseball and who are big fans of baseball like myself haven't noticed this. Because again, to grow a sport, you want to have good players, but you also want to have good players on good teams and teams that make postseasons and teams with good players that make postseasons and win championships. That's the formula to success in the sports world and in the business world. Look at basketball. And now I know basketball is a totally different realm. I get it. But let's just look at basketball for a second and hear me out. Again, I don't know everything about basketball. I probably am the worst person to talk about basketball on the face of the earth. But I'm going to anyways for a second because it's important. So basketball. Best player in the NBA, possibly in NBA history, arguably, is LeBron James, of course. Now, LeBron James came up with the Cavaliers. He was with them for a couple of years, made the playoffs, made the finals with them, then went down to Miami, won a couple of championships with them, went back to Cleveland, won a championship with Cleveland, went to a couple more NBA finals, and then flew over to LA and won a championship with the Lakers. And that's where he currently stands. LeBron James, best player in basketball. One of the most popular sports athletes of our time. And why is he popular? Well, number one, he's good. Number two, he's likable. Number three, and the most important thing, he's on good teams. He's always been on good teams. And not only have they been good, they've been championship caliber. You see LeBron James play every single spring. When was the last time you've seen LeBron James not play in the month of June? LeBron James, big star. When he goes to teams, and he's been on a lot of teams, he hasn't just stuck with one team. So you can't say, oh, he's always been with one team, and, you know, like a team like the Lakers, always been with the Lakers, and, you know, the Lakers have a lot of money, they've always been there, they've always been on top. No, he's been with low market teams, the Cavaliers, high market teams, the Heat, and the Lakers. And he's won in all places. And he's popular. And the sport of basketball is popular. Why? Mainly because of him and his buddies he's brought along. And again, I know, even though Bryce Harper went from Washington to Philly, doesn't mean he can bring his buddy Chris Bryant, who he played with as a kid in Las Vegas, over to Philadelphia. I know baseball doesn't work that way, but still, you kind of wish it did. And you kind of wish, at minimum, these superstars, like I mentioned, were on good teams. And I know Bryce Harper is having somewhat of an MVP type of season. And I know that's not going to get the Phillies over the top when it comes to making a postseason position. It can help them, but it's not going to make a difference. I get it. Basketball is very different. There's fewer guys on a basketball team. One guy can change the whole game, a whole series, the whole season, really, in basketball. Baseball is not like that. Guys can hit 30 home runs, but just because you hit 30 home runs doesn't mean your team's, going to end up with 90 to 95 wins. I get that. I understand that. But regardless, you want the popular players to be on good teams and teams that make the playoffs on a consistent basis and that maybe, just maybe, win a couple of championships along the way. Am I asking too much for baseball? I think baseball has to take a deep dive and really look at this issue that they have in front of them. And they have to say, look, we don't want to rig the sport. We don't want to give advantages to high market teams like the Yankees and like the Dodgers and like the Phillies. We don't want to cheat the system, but we kind of want to help them out. You know what I mean? We kind of want to help them out. And again, that could mean my Tigers not winning a World Series for a very long time. I get that. I understand that. But as long as baseball is popular and baseball's growth continues on a upward trajectory, I think I'll be okay with the Tigers losing for a couple more years. I mean, I want them to get Carlos Correa. I do. Trust me, I want them to get Correa and anybody else they can in free agency this year. But again, if it's Correa, if it's Baez, if it's Story, if it's Seager, if it's whoever the big free agents are, I would like one or two big free agents to go to a good team. Because Trevor Story going to the Rangers ain't going to make a difference when it comes to their chances making the postseason. But I think baseball needs to somehow fix what's going on. And I think baseball needs to help teams with good players like the Phillies, like the Angels, like the Padres, like the Blue Jays, get back in a position where they can make the postseason on a consistent basis. Why? Because those teams have some of the most popular players in the sport. And as of right now, those teams are not making the playoffs. Which means the best players in baseball will not play on the sport's biggest stage. So that's all I got for today's video. Like, comment, and subscribe. As always, guys, I'll catch you later.